What's up guys, James Blonde here with MMOHuts.com, hopping back into Guild Wars 2 exactly 1 month before its highly anticipated new expansion, Heart of Thorns, launches on October 23rd. Now I'm pretty sure all of you guys have heard that the core game itself has officially gone free to play, as they announced it at PAX Prime along with the launch date for Heart of Thorns. Some of you guys are probably happy about this, some of you are mad for various reasons, and maybe a few of you guys don't even care. So honestly, it's been a while since I've played Guild Wars 2, and originally I wanted to hop back into the game right after the free-to-play announcement to see what's changed, because typically that's what we want to do. And the thing is, unlike WildStar, for example, nothing's changed at all. The game didn't go through any sort of comprehensive transformations in order to go free-to-play. It's pretty much the same game, the same Guild Wars 2 that we've seen for the past 3 years, with only a couple minor changes, or actually just account types, really. But you might be wondering about any sort of free-to-play restrictions, which is definitely something we're not looking forward to hearing about. It's kind of hard to have a positive connotation with the word restrictions in any case, so in this video, I'll share with you guys what to expect from Guild Wars 2 in its free-to-play form, ArenaNet's thought process on why they made that change, and talk a little bit more about Heart of Thorns. Alright, so let's start out by talking about the announcement itself and the concerns fans of the game had. So, ArenaNet has had the pre-purchase of Heart of Thorns up for several months now, and until they announced the free-to-play transition to the core game, and honestly, they still have it this way, they've marketed the pre-purchase of Heart of Thorns to start at $49.99, but that price was supposed to be justified because it included the core game. Before the free-to-play announcement of the core game, people were happy with this price because if you broke it down, you're getting the core game for the typical price it has been recently, which was anywhere between $10 and $20, as well as the expansion itself, which would make up for the extra $20 to $30. Makes sense. We've seen this style before, but it gets a little dicey now that the core game is free regardless and doesn't quite factor into the starting price of the standard edition of the expansion. So now you're looking at $49.99 as the starting price of the expansion, but there's still a little bit more to it. Even before the free-to-play announcement of the core game, if you bought the core game between the announcement date of Heart of Thorns, which was on January 23rd, and June 16th, you were automatically refunded the exact amount you paid for the core game. So if you paid $10 for the game, you got $10 back. So that's kind of cool. They actually issued a refund. A lot of people were worried that they were just going to get screwed over if they bought the game prior to the announcement of free-to-play, but they didn't. This also happens if you pre-purchased Heart of Thorns before July 31st, so there was still a window. Plus, if you bought the core game direct from ArenaNet prior to the free-to-play announcement, you got a full refund as well. Unfortunately, this didn't quite work out so much if you bought the game through third-party retailers like Amazon, for example. In fact, you can still buy the core game on Amazon right now for like 20 bucks, and I suppose you'll get a refund once you activate the serial key. However, I wouldn't suggest trying it unless you're willing to lose 20 bucks. Not really sure how that's working out for those guys. So if you want all the features in the game without any restrictions, pre-order Heart of Thorns. That's your safest bet. So keep in mind, actually buying the game anywhere you can still buy it is not going to get you any more features. But on that note, let's go back to the topic of restrictions. Like I mentioned, the game has remained exactly the same it has for the last 3 years, with only a couple of minor changes for players making new accounts to play the game for the first time for free. So if you've already bought the game, this doesn't even apply to you. This is only for players that are trying out the game the first time. And this is not a Star Wars The Old Republic type of free-to-play where these players have to work really hard in order just to play the free version. In fact, the president of ArenaNet didn't like to consider Guild Wars 2 going free-to-play in the terms of saying, oh, we're going free-to-play, rather than just releasing the game free to anyone who wants to play it. Full-scale game, here to go, it's free. There's definitely a difference, and it has to do with the typical negative connotations associated with the free-to-play industry. You guys know what I'm talking about. Well, what they've done is they've broken up their player base into 3 account types, just for now. Free, core, and Heart of Thorns, which of course just means that you have the expansion. You've already pre-ordered it. Free accounts are limited to just 2 character slots and 3 bag slots, opposed to the traditional 5 and 5 that you normally had if you bought the core game originally. Not really that bad, just minor setback in my opinion, and honestly, it's actually the worst restriction, if anything, regarding the free-to-play version. Mainly because I don't understand why that actually matters. As far as content itself, the only restriction is that players on free accounts will only have access to starter maps, but only until the character reaches level 10, which doesn't really affect you if you're a new player to begin with, because you're going to want to explore the starter areas. The other one is you're not able to send gold or items through mail, which makes sense, and I'll tell you why in a second. And you're only able to send standard mail to mutual friends. Free accounts also have limited chat options and some economy restrictions, but not specifically just to be random restrictions on players, kind of like the slot thing. It's set up this way as a countermeasure against spammers and bots. And if you've been playing for a little while now, since the announcement, you've noticed there hasn't really been an increase in spammers and bots like you might have expected. So they're really cracking down on that, and it seems like the system is working out nicely on that matter. And that's pretty much it. The restrictions are essentially based on features that can typically be abused by spammers and bots. So you're limited to where you are in the region, early level, so you can't jump around and sort of tarnish the game that way. And once again, if you plan on buying Heart of Thorns anyway, you don't have to worry about any sort of restrictions, whether you think they're minor or not. This only affects players who are creating an account for the first time to try the game out now that it's free. And those of you already playing Guild Wars 2, of course you know about the game's cash shop. Nothing about that has changed either, so no worries there. And just to finalize my point on this, the game hasn't changed at all. And it definitely hasn't turned into a free-to-play game that tries to aggressively monetize on free players. The only drawback to not pre-purchasing the expansion just yet that I've noticed is this Heart of Thorns icon flashing at the bottom here ever so often as a reminder, which is kind of annoying even if you bought the core game originally. Luckily, if you're not ready yet, you can click on this and say not now, and it'll go away until you log in next. It's not like it stays there. Now, the idea behind this business model change is pretty clear at this point, but it's really nice that ArenaNet explained it to its community. This is pretty much the first time that we've actually seen a buy-to-play or pay-to-play game selectively go free-to-play without being in some sort of financial rough spot, and they've made that clear, announcing that they've sold more than 5 million copies of the game in the 3 years it's been out. And during the announcement of Heart of Thorns, just in that weekend alone, they sold over 750,000 copies of the core game. That's a lot of refunds they had to give out. But they've made the decision to go free-to-play just because they know that if you have the minimal restricted access to a game that offers a great MMO experience to players and what they're looking for free, like a trial on steroids, the chances of them selling the expansion to offer more to players is drastically increased. Thus the reason they kept the expansion price the same even after they announced the core game going free. And this is actually their plan for future expansions as well, and it's kind of nice that they mentioned this ahead of time, so, you know, the unlucky few don't get caught again. Whenever they come out with the next expansion, it's going to include the previous expansions, kind of like what WoW did later on. This keeps players from having to buy the core game and each one of the expansions prior to the latest to play with their friends. Their business model, once again, remains a one-time buy-to-play model that just jumps from expansion to expansion. You're always going to be buying the latest expansion, and based on what we've seen so far, you're probably going to pay a standard full-price game price for it. But of course, in time, you can imagine there's going to be sales, just like they've always had. I can't say that returning to the game for the first time in a very long time reminded me of how much I enjoyed it. I don't like to play it very much because I'm always covering the free-to-play games. But now that it's in the free-to-play market, I pretty much put it right up there next to Terra on my favorites list. It's a great option for PvP, whether it's the small matches that you like playing or the massive world versus world battles that are really popular with this game. And the nice thing about that is you'll have even more with Heart of Thorns. There you'll have new world versus world experience, stronghold PvP, guild halls, masteries that provide an alternative form of late game leveling, elite specializations for each of the professions, and of course the new revenant profession altogether, which ties back into the core game itself. So anyway guys, if you hadn't had a chance to try out Guild Wars 2 in its 3 years that it's been out, now's definitely the time while it's free. Well, I guess it's going to be free forever now. But before this expansion comes out, there's a link in the description below to download the game, and Heart of Thorns actually comes out on October 23rd, still available for pre-purchase directly in the game, like I mentioned with the icon above the minimap here. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Get more information about the game at MMOHuts.com, where we cover all the latest information happening with Guild Wars 2. And until next time, guys, that's going to be it for me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.